we have 3 esteemed panelists, each of whom have very direct experience with artificial intelligence, but they do so from different perspectives. So I will share briefly on their profiles, not the entire thing, because you would have had their profile sent to you on the agenda. And if anyone had not seen the agenda, we'll try and put it for you in the chat a little later during the session. I'll start with Aaron Besson, who is a software developer from Trinidad and Tobago, and who began his journey as a graphic designer and moved into website development during the early days of the late 90s, the early days of the internet. After working in several advertising and software development agencies, he founded Bespoke Multimedia Limited. Recently, Aaron has been exploring the possibilities of AI-powered applications and has developed innovative apps such as Snap GPT, Fix My Photo Pro, and My Magical Storybook. Our next panelist is Chantal Periera, who is the Country Corporate Marketing and Communications Manager for JMMB. Passionate about staying ahead of industry trends, Chantal is committed to continuous learning and professional development. She actively seeks out new technologies, emerging platforms, and innovative marketing approaches. In addition to her professional achievements, Chantal is known for her strong work ethic, dedication, and ability to thrive in fast-paced environments. She is an accomplished marketer with a diverse skill set and a decade of experience in brand management, advertising, sales, media management, content, and marketing. Her strategic thinking, leadership abilities, and passion for creativity make her a valuable asset in driving brand success and achieving marketing objectives. And our third panelist is Kristian Baney, who has a background here in Trinidad and Tobago, but currently resides in Canada. Kristian is an accomplished professional with over 15 years of experience in information technology. He holds a master's and bachelor's degree in information systems, a diploma in computer systems technology, and an artificial intelligence program certification. Additionally, Kristian is PMP, Scrum, Agile, ProSci, ITIL certified, and AI certified. His experience spans the application of PMI PMBOK, ProSci change management, and Agile Scrum methodologies, and extend to digital transformation project development in areas such as AI, ML, DevOps, and Internet of Things. Currently, Kristian is specializing in artificial intelligence and data science within the context of project management. In fact, he holds a position of project elect for the Northern Alberta PMI chapter. And in fact, I met Kristian at the leadership conference hosted by PMI in San Diego earlier this year. In fact, last month, he delivered for us at the PMI Southern Caribbean chapter, a session on ChatGPT, and this yielded one of our highest registration and participation levels seen by the chapter since we went online. So I know that this team is going to really be able to give us some rich understanding of some of the challenges that we would be seeing, but also many of the advantages of artificial intelligence, and particularly ChatGPT. So I would like to begin by inviting Aaron to take the floor and give us his thoughts with respect to the implications of ChatGPT. Aaron?
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I feel like I don't even need to introduce myself after that. But yeah, I'm a child of the 80s, so I've been lucky enough to ride a lot of these technology waves as they've come in. You know, starting with personal computers coming home, to then the internet, the dawn of the internet here in Trinidad. I was very lucky at that time to get a job in one of the first ISPs. So, you know, I learned HTML at a very young age, and that sort of, you know, took me along this path. And now with the advent of AI, you know, it's certainly one of the largest waves that have come through. And I think just like, all of the other waves, it has people very worried, that they're going to lose their jobs or that they're going to be replaced. And I think from my point of view, what I wanted to discuss was, as a software developer, how I am leveraging the tools, the sort of ways that I see it being used in business and personally. I think, when people speak about AI, they just really speak about ChatGPT. What they also forget about is the entire sphere of machine learning, visual computing, speech recognition, translation of languages, and all of that sort of the other benefits that will come from AI, as well as medicine and technology breakthroughs. And then also I wanted to speak about some of the topics such as ethics, and regulation. I think that a lot of governments are on their heels when it comes to this issue. And, especially like ChatGPT and a lot of the larger companies who are developing the software, they've been asking for regulation, and governments haven't really stepped forward and say, okay, here are the things that we all should be building. Here are the things that are totally out of bounds that you all cannot touch. And here how we see using it as a government and also, empowering the population, because there is going to be a drastic change in employment and the type of jobs that people will be doing. And I think there needs to be a lot of preparedness from the government of how you handle that. Because, 10 years ago, we would never have imagined the type of jobs we have now. 15 years ago, I would never have imagined that I'm an application developer. There were no applications to develop. There were no smartphones in those days, So I think it's really a lot of planning, the ethical and the responsible side of AI. Government needs to step up there. And then, as I said, how AI will play a role in your personal lives. Because, again, we're talking about ChatGPT, but how is AI going to play a role in 10, 15 years from now when we have, robots doing healthcare for elderly people or working in factories? How is AI going to play a role in our everyday interactions with software, with machinery, and with other people? So I think that's where my stance and my view and the contributions I could make to this panel come from. I'm definitely no expert on the topic, but it's something I'm passionate about that I really enjoy building on top of. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions that the panel has.
Okay, thank you very much, Aaron. That I think was a good start, and it sets some context for us in terms of needing to understand that we also have to look at ethics and implications in the conversation. So now I would like to ask Chantal to join us on the floor and share some of her thoughts with us as panelists for today. Chantal?
Sure. Thank you, Pamela. And thanks for the introductions and the warm welcomes, everybody. I actually wanted to discuss it from a personal point of view, as well as in a marketing space. So in my role as a marketer, how do I see this software basically benefiting and or harming some situations? So I'm going to take it from that perspective. So when ChatGPT came around, of course, a lot of persons, I think, within the social media space jumped on that and was like, okay, how do we use this to our advantage? How could I curate content very quickly? How could I help this move my business along? And just like marketers within the space, we would have done the same thing. We wanted to see, okay, how does this help, take up in terms of time, efficiency, etc. And we would have explored that as well. And personally, I would have really gone down that rabbit hole and explored it further than I think most people within my space. But I was so fascinated by it because I saw it as a learning tool, and it's a tool that is quite helpful. And not just ChatGPT, as Aaron was saying, there's like hundreds of other programs right now that I have been exploring and going through and seeing the benefits of utilizing that. But what I actually wanted to point out was just a couple of points for persons to understand, as in within marketing, the good and the bad, the positive and the negative. So if you would allow me, I'll do that very quickly now. Right, so I just had some points that I wanted to share with the audience that I think is beneficial and or shows the pros and cons. So when we talk about ChatGPT as a learning tool, as a tool to help you move forward in your business, there are some things that you can do that will really help move along. It does save a lot of time. if you need to structure some guides, some points that can help you with your thought process. I see that as a very beneficial tool. It helps you in a space where you may be clouded or you're not feeling 100% and you're trying to put together your thoughts. It does help you structure it in such a way once you know how to prompt those responses, right? It is good for data gathering, market research, and insights as well. You can use it as a quick tool to kind of give you, again, some background context, some insights as it's pulling information from across the internet space. And of course, once you know, again, the prompts, that helps you direct and narrow in on what you're looking for. That could help save some times in terms of research. Another thing in terms of scalability, right? So content creation for social media platforms, if you have to put out 20 pieces of content and you're looking for something to help, again, structure and prove that guide, that is something that's really quick and easy that you can utilize, right? And then in terms of some of the not so great points of view for ChatGPT or any other AI tool, your lack of human touch, right? At the end of the day, it's a human putting it into this information. And you have to remember that your tone of voice, your brand, or whatever company you may be representing, whether it's yourself as an entrepreneur or a company you work for, that brand, your tone of voice has to be heard, and you can't just rely on an AI tool to give that to you. So it's very important that you strike that balance and you don't lose yourself trying to use a software to help do your job for you. There is potential, of course, for inaccurate information or misappropriation as people have come up with the deep fake and all of that. So you have to be very wary of what you're using it for and ensure that you are checking those marks and making sure that you're not going over the line. You're verifying your source and your information. I would not recommend this for students to just do their essays in 5 minutes, right? Let's do the work. And that leads me to the next point, the laziness factor. Don't be lazy. Use it, as I said, as a tool, right? Just like I think of other tools that would help you along the way. Please do not just lose yourself in any one of these programs and just forget your own self, your representation, as well as your brand. And remember, at the end of the day, your expertise is what you would have been hired for by an organization, or your entrepreneurial skills, right? That's yours. An AI tool can't take that away from you. You're putting into the information. So don't lose yourself. Don't lose your brand. Don't lose your voice. Don't rely on it so heavily. Again, like all other tools, just like Canva, it's there to help you, but you don't want to lose the whole artistic or creativity behind yourself that you put into it. So from my perspective as a marketing manager and or somebody who's been in the advertising industry and brand, I actually just looked at some of those things to say that I see the benefits, but I also see the risks involved. And you have to find a balance in everything that you do. And if you understand and you do your research, you can find the best ways to use that tool for you. So it is up to the user to make that choice and decide which one is best for them in all these AI softwares. And there's a mix, there could be multiple, but don't lose yourself within it. Yeah.
A directly related question in the chat from Stephanie Fingal. She's asking, how does ChatGPT address copyright issues? Would you like to take that as well?
Yeah, sure. Copyright is a huge gray area with AI right now, especially for plagiarism on copy, content on the internet and images, because a lot of the image libraries will have been trained on Shutterstock and other stock photo libraries. So what you see is when you do a search for, a guy holding a hard hat looking at an oil rig, you see the remnants of a Shutterstock watermark on it. So this is a clear case of where governments need to step in and say what information is not allowed to be for the models to be trained on, and content generated by the model, who owns the copyright to it. Recently, the United States Congress said how content created by AI is not owned, the copyright is not in the creator's name, So that leads a massive gray area of, for someone like myself who is publishing books and content with AI, who owns the copyright to it, So again, I think this is a case where the governments need to step in. But what I do think is going to happen is, and it's happening already, is that there are a lot of tools that are being built that you could easily detect AI with. You know, there are originality AI, ChatGPT, sorry, GPT-0, and other tools like that. And a lot of them are browser extensions that you just install into Chrome that you could use to figure out whether this video, for example, is a deep fake of Obama or Trump or Keith Rowley, for example. And then also to quickly figure out if a picture was generated online, has been plagiarized in some way, or copy has been plagiarized. So copyright is a huge gray area that the governments and different organizations need to step in. In a couple months, what we're going to have is AI generated music, where it's already happening on a small scale, but in a few months, the software is going to become so powerful that I could produce music from samples from any artist. And I may not have the voice sound exactly like Marshall Montano or Jay-Z or Beyonce, but I'm still using their likeness and their samples of their music. So who owns the copyright for all of that, you know? So I think it's a case where they need to get involved. What I'm fearful of is it's going to be a case of like blockchain and cryptocurrency of 5-6 years ago, where everybody was calling for regulation and stuff like that. The government didn't get involved. And what we see is 7 and 8 years later, the SEC and all the governments stepping in and saying, you know, all of this nonsense needs to stop now, you know? So I think where we are with AI is that Sam and all the other CEOs of these companies are approaching the government and saying, please tell us which way we're supposed to go, you know, so that we could prevent these things from happening. Because what you don't want is, for example, you know, 6 months from now, some 14-year-old kid producing some hit song that is sampled off of Jay-Z's music, and then he gets sued for it for $1 billion, you know, because there were no regulations to kind of tell him what he needs to do. So I think it's a great question. It's something that needs to be answered. You know?
Yes, and Stephanie has put a follow-up comment where she says it seems like there'd be a lot of work for litigators soon.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed. And yeah, I am happy you pointed out, Aaron, that it's in fact a gray area because it is a live discussion that's happening globally now. So artists need to understand what are some of the things they may need to do to ensure that they could protect their work or they can identify their work when it's used for AI generation. Now, I want to go to a question that Liz Cox has posed in the chat. And Chantal, I'm going to bring you into the conversation and ask you if in the context of what Aaron has just shared, you know, what are the limitations when it comes to the data? Like how up to date is the data? Can you use that data in marketing to predict future outcomes?
So if you're using it for data insights, generally it is up to date in a sense, but you will not get statistical information. You would still have to go and do your own research to gather that. However, it's whatever's out there on the internet right now. It's what's being pulled and gathered for you to be able to access that information. I would not rely 100% on it because, again, the source of where that information comes on, you can't exactly, you know, legitimize it for right now. So I would say you have to use it as a guide and you do your own research to make sure that you are really getting that insight and that context correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And if I could just add to that quickly, like one of the techniques I use is, and you touched on it briefly just now, Chantal, is the prompt engineering side of things, right? If, for example, ChatGPT's cutoff date, I believe now is August 2021. So it's not going to know any current data. So if you asked it, what is the price of oil right now? It doesn't know, right? There are plugins that you could use now to like search the internet to get that data, but it's slow. But if, for example, Chantal needed to put together a marketing report for the last 5 years of GMMB's social media, ChatGPT is not going to know that. But what she can do is build a model trained on that data, right? And using, and what I mean by trained on that data is, I don't want to get too technical about it, but what they do is they vectorize the data, which basically takes each word and converts it to a decimal number. And they plot that on an XY graph, and any numbers that are close together, you know, those are words that are similar. So red and strawberry, they will have numbers that are similar, right? So what she could do is train ChatGPT on her data. It'll take 5 years of her marketing data from social media and all the different channels they have. And then she could ask it questions about that data. she could ask it to build a report on the last 2 years of the demographics of clicks on her social media posts and that kind of stuff. That's how you could leverage AI and ChatGPT in an office space, where it can't search your own personal data from the last 6 months. It just doesn't have access to that data. But, there are ways that you can, search that data and get that sort of relevant information.
Okay, well, we'd also need to talk about what data ChatGPT is trained on, right? Because that too is important for us to know how reliable the information is in terms also of its bias. I just want to check in with Kristian.
Yeah.
He is ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, if so, all right. Okay, so then let me invite you back on so that you could give us a demonstration of the ChatGPT platform.
Okay. So I was going to give you a demonstration on, let's say, creating a marketing plan here. So here's just a question I came up with. So Trinidad and Tobago's solar power sales and energy sector are lagging, holding just a 5% market share after 1 year. To increase this to 50%, a robust marketing plan is needed. Using SEO to boost website traffic, trade shows to reach more potential clients, and LinkedIn ads to target industry professionals. Our aim is to sell an additional 1,000 units within the next 6 months. So I'm asking ChatGPT, ready to provide me an answer on the upcoming question. So I haven't asked the question, just kind of prompting it here. So let's see what it comes back with here. Okay, so what's my question? My question is, act as a marketing manager and create a detailed marketing plan using a formal tone and table format with quantifiable results included. Highlight anything in bold as important info. So again, what this is doing is going to create something that's going to assist me of customizing my own marketing plan. So again, it's saving you much hours and whatnot going and prepping a framework of your marketing plan here, when you can just go back and just customize to see if it's relevant data. Again, there's putting sample data in here, but yeah, you could see exactly what it's trying to do here. What I'm asking based on my question here: the goal, the strategy, the tactics, the metrics, and the time frame. So it says boost website traffic by 50% is our goal. Our strategy is that. Here's our metric. And if I scroll down, to increase market share for 5%, bold summary, still going. Let's just look at this for a second. So increase website traffic. Remember I said to prompt it to give me the most relevant information that it thinks in bold. So it has an increased website traffic of 50%. So it's coming out with this type of thing. So I said it's in table format here, but here's a good framework, just from a very simple question to ask it to help me create a marketing plan here. We could try another one here for, let's say, a guideline to ethics. So let's say here's our problem here. Well, here's our issue here that we're having. So the Trinidad and Tobago, just made up a name, innovation company has submission insignificant guidelines on ethics and responsible use of ChatGPT, leading to potential misuse and negative impacts by employees since its release. This has raised concerns among corporate end users, with a 40% decline in user trust and 25% increase in negative feedback to ChatGPT in the last 3 months. It's hypothetical, of course. So, ready to provide me an answer on my upcoming question? Absolutely. So it says so. So remember, you always want to prompt a ChatGPT. The first thing you want to do is make it act as a rule. Whether you're a project manager, marketing manager, HR manager, or a doctor, and then put your actions after that and end it with this type of tone: personal tone, humor, funny tone, formal tone, informal tone. Make it talk like a Trinidadian, make it talk like a Jamaican, make it talk like Donald Trump or whatnot. It can do that and come back with an answer. So without talking too much here. Let's see what my question is, what the response to it is. So I asked, act as an HR manager and create a detailed HR policy and procedure guideline using a formal tone with quantifiable results. So it's creating a plan. I didn't ask it to make it in a table format. That's fine. But this will be like just pure plain text, but as you can see, policy name, ethical response. I'll let you just look at this for a second. But it's quite impressive, isn't it? Saving you much time and highlighting the important information it thinks that you should embrace in your documentation that you're creating. For example, this is an HR policy and guideline thing. So it's still going. Remember, every time that you prompt ChatGPT, it's something new. I have no idea what it's prompting me. This is actually the first time, but basically it will give you something like this. Now, this is good enough where it says measures of success and whatnot. Okay, that's great, but it's a great way to start. But again, if I put a lot more information in here or revise it, it's going to give me something even more comprehensive, but at least it gets you off on the right start, right? Saving you a lot of time and whatnot. So let's try one more here as a project manager, okay? Now, what does this say? A modern commercial building in Trinidad and Tobago, 10,000 square feet building to meet growing demand for commercial spaces, aims to comply with building codes, meet modern business needs, and stay with $20 million budget and 24-month timeline. So design and construction, procurement, quality checks, and compliance with building codes included. Project manager is Kristian, leads 20 teams. I put in a couple of people in here just for sample data. So everybody that's done projects too is pretty familiar with project charter. So I thought I'd give you just an example on what I could do for a project charter, which I am finding quite impressive. So let's see. So it comes out project name, Trinidad and Tobago commercial building, right? Project manager name, that's right. Key team members, that's right. Key stakeholders, right. Project purpose and justification. See, if you read it, it also says, you know, it's coming back with their own thoughts. Like there's a growing demand for commercial spaces in Trinidad and Tobago. It's kind of like making you even make your presentation, or sorry, your documentation even more insightful or informative on its own. And that's why we go back and we customize the way we want it. But see, project scope, project deliverables, project schedule. Remember, this is a project charter. Project charter is very high level information within the project management plan. So stakeholder information, risk information, scope information. This is what an actual project management plan should look like. It's nothing complex like a project management plan, but a project charter should look like something like this. Now, all I would do is I go back to my question, you know, and I said a modern building, whatever in here, and I just want to customize and make sure that what is produced makes sense. Or if I need to revise it, the only thing I would just do is go like revise project purpose and justification to include to include 10,000 more square feet. Okay, well, let's say I'm confused. Let's put 50,000. So let's see what happens just for something simple like that, because it's already been trained and already knows what I typed in before. So it's gonna adapt after that. It's gonna take what I put, and it knows what I put before. So it hits. Here it says, certainly, here's a revised project and justification. See? So I put in 50,000 more. The purpose of this project is design and construct a modern 60,000. Remember, I put 50 and then plus the 10 is 60, and it even calculates that and does that for you. So you see how that saves you so much more time as a project manager, at least, to do that. So those are just some of the prompts that I wanted to go into. I know there's a lot of questions going to be asked, and I like Aaron was talking about fine-tuning data, which is workarounds around regulation, compliance, and counter adversaries, and reducing errors and ethics first, and whatnot, and bias and data privacy and all that. So I'll go back to I'll let Kamala go back and
Kristian, before you move off the demo, there's a question from one of our participants.
Okay, sorry, I didn't know.
Stephanie wants to see an example of a music development request. Is that possible?
Okay, first let me think about it. A music development request. Okay, so now ChatGPT cannot produce this audio for you if that's what she's looking for, but if she wants to know information of how to do it, I can prompt it for that.
So for instance, the first time I became aware of ChatGPT is because on PMI Global, someone asked ChatGPT to write a poem about PMI and project management. And it's really incredible, the quality of poetry that flowed from ChatGPT. So that's what it gives. It gives a lot of narration. It gives it in prose or whichever form. So maybe, Stephanie, what we could do is ask it for the lyrics of
just to see as we did the you do the little narration first and then you do the question. How do you do that on ChatGPT? Because I saw one of the other comments in the chat about it, how you structure the thing as far as copyright issues are concerned. So I wanted to see how it will unfold vis-a-vis any issue of copyright in particular, if that's possible now. It might not be.
Yeah, well, before I give you a small example, right? So when you're concerned about copyright, right, I'll tell you how to do it. First of all, you want to make a format for your question or your prompt. You want to give a blurb on what you're trying to speak on. Say, I don't know, I really like the song Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. The lyrics are probably one of the best I heard from his point of view. Okay. I like how it relates to a girl he just met, and he assumes that he is, I don't know, his assumes that he is her baby's father. So putting like your own kind of blurb and what you want first will definitely customize the way of how you speak and what the outcome is to help copyright not be the way it is. So if I put, this is the way that I'm thinking right now, and I put act as a songwriter, okay, or producer, no, songwriter, and produce me a sample song like Billie Jean based on soca or reggae music influence in that and Tobago. Use a informal, exciting, and funny tone. Okay, so you see how I don't even know what's going to come up. I've never done this before, but so you see how like to make sure that your regulation, there's no counter, there's no copyright infringements or nothing. I gave it a view of what I want an answer to be, right? So by doing that, it knows the way I type, right? It knows the way how I structured my sentences. And I used a framework at the end here where it says act as a strong songwriter, right? So I'm acting as a role, then I'm giving it instructions or parameters or actions to do. And then I'm telling you which user tone to use. And I'm not going into crazy depth of information because I believe that it's something that's concise and clear when you're using ChatGPT is the best response to get, because after that, you keep on revising it in increments. Revise, revise, revise until you get the result that you're looking for. So let's press enter. Let's see what happens here. This is hilarious. So you see, nobody in the world came up with this, right? So how could this could be anything copyright? This is totally legit.
Oh my God.
Trini Jane is not my girl.
That's really good. That's really good.
Wow.
Yeah, so you see how it relates to the song Billie Jean, which we all know, right? Look, so I laugh and dance in the soca trance. So it's even like making up the rhymes and everything. And I'm sure if you put this into some kind of AI tool to make it sing to you, it probably sound really cool. I'm probably gonna do that later and see how it sounds.
What a lot of persons are doing. They're combining these tools and they're creating a whole lot of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So
So that's how you would do that. So I hope that answers your question there.
there's still yet another question, Kristian.
Yeah.
I want to see this. So Marina has asked if you could do a sample, a simple example of the role of a CFO.
Okay, sure. And yeah, that's easy.
So while Kristian is doing that, I just want to deal with this issue in the chat, which was shared by Yvonne, where there was an attorney who used ChatGPT to develop their legal opinion to submit before a court. And what they found was, in fact, ChatGPT made up some of the legal cases that it used. And you know, this is something that's critical for attorneys because decisions are based on precedent. And if you provide a case which you are saying this is the reason why you are asking for a judgment in your favor, and that was something that was made up.
Right.
Then,
I know all about that. I know all about that case. Now, that guy, whoever did that, definitely did not know ChatGPT, which is a great example of how people should be trained, especially at your work or whatnot. So what he should have done, because what he did is create a case file or whatnot, right? And then it's thinking that ChatGPT is going through all the different cases, right, that are real cases in the past and bringing up information. No, because ChatGPT right now, as we use the free version or even the paid version, right, it is still using the World Wide Web. So it has a model called ChatGPT 3.5, which is connected to the World Wide Web, right? Which will give you fabricated and inaccurate answers. ChatGPT may sometimes provide incorrect or fabricated answers or fake news. As I said, it is recommended that users review an output generated by ChatGPT, which he didn't, for accuracy and appropriateness and actual usefulness for accepting it. Now, what he should have done, which would have made it legit, is create a fine-tuned model, which was basically what Aaron was kind of talking about, but I'll go into a little bit more. So when guiding transformational change to utilize ChatGPT internal to an organization's structure or strategy, they should be documented. So first of all, the first thing you want to do is create an AI or ChatGPT readiness assessment or HR policy and train your employees on it, right? Because the more powerful a tool is, the more responsibility comes. Now, what I mean by, now I said that the implementation of ChatGPT, you might be thinking, well, it's already made application, right? So specifically, I mean to fine tune the data from ChatGPT to overcome implications of this. So this can be done through code or an application that allows customization of models. So your IT department should know about. But most importantly, by creating, assembling, and refining pre-trained data with only your organization, this is the basis of how to help improve accuracy of ChatGPT's responses, reducing the chances of giving incorrect or misleading information. So moreover, fine-tuning can minimize biases in model outputs, making responses accurate and fair. Also, just know that ChatGPT, as you know it, is a model that based on the World Wide Web. But if you customize the model in layman's terms, I'll tell you, you're going to make your own predefined model. So you're going to have a model with all this information is going into it, but you're going to have a repository like your SharePoint repository that you have at work, your intranet. You trust that, right? Everybody in the law firm has a repository that they only have access to. Of course, they trust that information because they know that information, right? How about you customize ChatGPT to only access that information to give a response? Would it be correct? 100% it would be correct, right? There will be no implications there because everything is coming that your HR department has already read and posted on your intranet or your SharePoint. So you can customize models like that to be even more responsive. Now, people think of ChatGPT. Now, OpenAI created a model called ChatGPT. However, there is an even better one that's not free, but if you customize your code, you can use it, and it's called DaVinci. DaVinci is 3 times as smarter than ChatGPT, but nobody really knows about it unless you do a customization. The reason because the more responses you get back, the more money you have to pay. So that's how it works. It's called tokenization. So OpenAI is using ChatGPT, which is a very good model, but there's less models, less sophisticated models that are cheaper. But ChatGPT comes across as, okay, we can handle this cost. But if they wanted to give it free for the whole world to use, and spend a lot more money for accuracy and stuff, they could use a model called DaVinci, just to let you know. But again, let's say you use the model DaVinci and you use it for custom data within your organization. That's only within your repository for your law firm or whatever. That is the most amazing thing. And then you can fine tune ethics, you could fine tune counter adversaries, you could regulate compliance and all of that stuff. So I just gave you kind of a briefing on that. So to answer your question, to act as a, I'm going to put a
CFO.
CFO. So anytime you want to just kind of reset, I could open up a new window or whatnot, but you just put it in new task and then it kind of erases what you were talking about. I was talking about Billie Jean. I don't want it to really relate to CFO. So act as a CFO. So that's my role, right? Act as a CFO. So move on. Act as a CFO of finance HQ. Okay, so I put that. So after the HQ, I am, this company is having issues balancing their timesheets within the internal payroll system, which is, I don't know, Ceridian. Now I've told the issue. Now I'm going to, so a role, there's the issue. Now what's the action? Please suggest a strategy plan to solve this using a formal and financial tool. Okay, so that's a simple one right there. I hope that's okay. So I guess it's just coming up with something. So what it's doing, it's creating a mass email, right? I mean, I could have told it not to use a mass email, create a financial document. To be honest, I don't even know what the financial document would be called, but I could have told it that. But anyways, you get the point here. So let's see what it says. As we navigate the complexity of financial responsibilities, it's come to my attention that we experience difficulties in balancing our timesheets within our internal payroll system, Ceridian. This presents both a financial and operational concern, and addressing it with urgency and paramount to Efficiency and accuracy in payroll process, fine. Outlining in the comprehensive strategy plan intended to improve our timesheet balances is conduct a thorough system audit. There's instruction. Invest in staff training. There's a suggestion. Establish clear timesheet submission guidelines. Suggestion. Regular monitoring and verification. Suggestion. This is actually pretty cool. Considering additional software integrations, of course, that's something I would definitely have said as an IT person. Feedback and continuous improvement. So let's see what the summary says. By implementing this plan, we expect to see a reduction in timesheet discrepancies, improved accuracy in payroll processing, and increased efficiencies with our departments. Your corporation adherence to this plan are vital to ensure success. As we proceed, we monitor these changes closely, measure their effectiveness, and make any necessary adjustments to ensure optimal outcomes. Okay, now let's say you really like this a lot and you like, oh, I wish I had more of an answer. I don't want to revise my prompt. Yeah, you can definitely do it. Revise, all you have to do is say revise to be more detailed and informative on the financial side of things. Okay, so you really like the response, but you actually want more. So all you have to say is revise. Remember I said it's an iterative process. You keep on revising until you find out the outcome that you want, right? Now, this is no copyright in here, right? Because I already gave it information that I'm talking about or whatnot. Now, if I really knew the whole scope of the problem and I gave it a paste of my whole scope, which could be a whole paragraph, right? How could it be copyright? Because it's using what I'm telling it to do. It's just making it sound nicer and giving suggestions of how to assist with me when I want to customize this plan in the future. But you see how it is making things longer, and it should be using more of financial verbiage. I see it here, including wages, overtime, benefits, taxes are accurate. Yeah, labor costs. You see, so it's giving more of a financial literature, right? So I hope that was a good clarification of your question there.
Okay, thank you very much, Kristian. So this actually has demonstrated what I wanted everyone to see. ChatGPT within seconds can produce for you some amazing amount of work. So Kristian, at this point, I'll ask you to stop the screen share. So I'll bring in all the panelists onto the screen so we can now engage the conversation a bit more. And Chantal, I wanted to come to you with this whole issue of ChatGPT making up some of the information and what has been your experience with that? Because for instance, I found I used ChatGPT to say, develop a competitors matrix for me for CCGI. And I was initially very impressed, you know, here's something that I could just fine tune and take to my board. And then suddenly I saw, when I asked for the actual competitors matrix, I saw an institute called the Trinidad and Tobago Governance Institute. And I was like, what? What? How did I miss that? There's a Trinidad and Tobago Governance Institute, and we have been functioning so much for the last 3 years and, you know, meeting everyone. I've never heard of this. Who are these people? And I started searching up the internet, trying to find who is the Trinidad and Tobago Governance Institute, until I realized it don't exist.
Yeah.
It was just totally made up. And so I realized, for me, and this was some months ago, initially when we were having our first ChatGPT panel discussion, I wanted to be able to have that practical experience to help me in being able to understand it. And so that was my first experience with realizing how important it is to be able to verify the information that you have given. So what has been your experience?
Yeah, sure. Of course. I mean, I have also had experiences with that in terms of you're trying to research a topic for even part of marketing or insights you want to get of context or entering a new territory, for instance. You're not going to get the exact information for your research because remember, it's pulling and it's not regulated information. So therefore it could come from anywhere, right? Yeah, so you have to really ensure that you're using it in a way that's just helped to guide or structure me, like how Kristian just showed the format and the structure, a framework. Do not use it as a Bible. It is not a Bible, right? It is not regulated. The information can come from anywhere. So we don't want to put something in there that we would obviously not be responsible for, accountable for. Remember, this is you going to utilize that tool, and your company or organization is holding you accountable. Therefore, you will not like to put something forward that is really not accurate. So again, I say with caution, you have to research everything on your own. You have to verify your source of information. You verify your data methods and all of that before you just put your head on a block that this is going to give you everything. It's not. So please, again, with caution.
Now, and also my understanding of ChatGPT is that it was trained by tons and tons and tons of documents, but the majority of it really emanated out of North America. And therefore, you would find that the information that is available to you in the way it is structured and presented to you would be the way that would exist within these markets. So what you may be looking for within our region, the information may be even less accurate.
Correct. Yes, I know basic, right? So you may be looking for something on a territory or region, and you're only getting a small bit of insight. And no matter how much you prompt, you're not going to get anything further, because again, we're not going to get all the information per territory, and it's not 100% up to date. So therefore, if something changes within the market within the last year or so, you're not going to get that information. So it all comes back to that user's accountability and responsibility to make sure that they research and they validate.
I would like to add to that, Chantal, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. That's correct, 100%. Just to let you know that ChatGPT has these plugins now that you can go and access the web. However, like Aaron was saying, they are slow. It's in beta mode. So if you ever use Microsoft Edge browser, right, they have a Bing chat, and the Bing chat is actually based on ChatGPT 4. So Bing is the search engine, and Microsoft Edge is the browser. And so what it does is it knows all the latest information that's out there that's produced in the last 2 seconds, right? Now, Bing is free, okay? Bing chat is free. So the GPT-4 is free, and you can pick between precise or balanced or creativity. Now, it's going to come back with an answer for you, but it's going to be very limited. That's what I've noticed. And it has to be, because they're giving it to you for free. So instead of getting, like, if you use ChatGPT specifically and you pay the $20 a month USD, which will give you a ChatGPT 4 or unlimited access to 3.5, it's going to give you a long explanation, just how, like I showed you on the prompts there, but it will not do that with Bing. But if you're looking for specific information in the world, and type in what's the latest trends in AI in the past 2 days that CNN has spoken about, it will tell you a good update, and it will give you the links to it. So just keep in mind that you can get information, right? Good information that you're looking up that just came out on the net through Bing, and that uses ChatGPT 4. But if you're doing prompts like how I showed you, don't use it for that, because it's not going to give you that response. So that's just something that people may want to know about as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now Aaron, I also want to bring you into the conversation to ask in terms of you first mentioned the issue of ethics and regulation. So initially, when I learned of ChatGPT and the fact that the way one would first put it is that the information is biased more towards North American culture. But then, do we want to train ChatGPT with all of the information from our Caribbean culture? Like, do we want all that information now accessible out there? Because that was one of the dangers that I saw very early on. Persons were being advised, do not put your company's sensitive information, because so long as it goes into ChatGPT, then it's out there available for anyone else to pull and get information. So what would be your thoughts for persons?
Well, a few things. ChatGPT in particular has an option where you could elect not to share your data with them, right? But that only protects the data that you are inputting into the chat. ChatGPT, as we were mentioning, is trained on all of the data on the internet. So at the beginning, when they were first developing it, they would have picked certain websites. So they picked, like, for example, Wikipedia. Say they said, you know, crawl all of Wikipedia. So it has all of Wikipedia's data. Crawl all of, Berkeley University library, because the people who went there went to Berkeley, you know, so they were using the resources they had. But what we're going to see over the next year or so, as you mentioned, ChatGPT 5 and ChatGPT 10 in a few years from now, it'll be trained on all data. So it might be impossible not to have your data in ChatGPT. And then something that we have not touched on is that every single application and web browser that you use is going to have some sort of AI or GPT in it already. Microsoft Office is already rolling out with AI tools in it. The entire Google suite has AI in it. Every single Adobe product is going to have AI in it. Every single browser you use is going to have AI in it. Apple doesn't mention a word of AI. They use neural network and machine learning, but every single phone and application that Apple is going to produce in the next year or two is going to have some form of AI in it. And unless you pick apart the terms and conditions carefully to understand what you're signing, most of us have already signed and agreed to share our data with them. It's inevitable. So I understand companies wanting to protect their data, but it's going to be I don't want to say a losing battle, but again, this is where governments need to step in and regulate the information to say, okay, JMMB, for example, could say, hey, look, we don't want our customer information, you know, indexed on ChatGPT. Stuff like that. You know, we don't want our market research indexed on ChatGPT because it's on a PDF somewhere on our website, you know, and that's where regulation needs to step in, because without the regulation in a year or so, I mean, engineers who are just trying to build the best product, they're just trying to cover every single bit of information that they could get into this service right now. So they're not trying to regulate themselves. So I think that's where we're at, is that every tool that you use in a year from now is going to have AI built into it, and it's going to be being trained on your data. So it's going to be very hard to elect out of that.
Yeah. All right. Now, I want to acknowledge we have in the participants list with us, we have our chairman, just making sure he's still here. Yes, Nigel is here with us. And we also have one of our directors out of Jamaica, Camille. And the reason I'm saying this is because Camille brought to our attention recently the importance for us understanding the data privacy law. But basically what you were sharing to Aaron is that we have to understand how those laws will apply in the context of this all information just being available and open and out there.
No, and I'll add to this. I mean, remember 20 years ago, sort of 25 years ago when the internet first came around, we had the same discussion. Everybody was saying, you know, anything on the internet, anybody could access it anytime. Companies, and as a web developer, I remember companies didn't want to upload their mission statement or any of their financials and that kind of stuff. Where, I mean, fast forward 20 years later, every bank, every company, you know, every publicly traded company, they publish all this information on the web, and it's easily accessible. So I think there's a lot of fear, rightfully so, just because there's no real, I keep saying no real regulation on this. But I think, and I may be an optimist in this, I think a lot of these things kind of work themselves out. That internally what will happen is that policies will be developed internally in companies about what information, and as we were just discussing about HR policies, about what information can you put into ChatGPT to do your everyday job, right? Do you even use ChatGPT? I see most businesses developing internal models, you know, based on DaVinci and other models that can be trained on a company's data. So that would really do away with a lot of worrying about, for example, one of Chantal's employees uploading a sensitive document to ChatGPT to ask for a report for it. And then, you know, 4 months from now, I'm doing some work for Republic Bank and ask for a marketing report, and whoop, it pops up some of JMBB numbers, because that kind of stuff happens every now and then. So I think, you know, internal policies will help that. But I think regulators need to step in at some point and sort of give everybody clear guidelines, and not to wait 3-4 years from now when it's, you know, it's when because what we haven't spoke about is AGI as well, which is, you know, beyond artificial intelligence, as general intelligence, when AI can make decisions on its own and, do critical thinking and problem solving on its own. And I think stepping in then will be too late, because, the automation part will have already started.
Having said that, though, despite numerous calls by a lot of the world's experts for AI pause, the CEO for Google, for instance, said, I could say, okay, I'll hold my hand for 5-6 months, but then, who says that Microsoft will do so, or Apple will do so? Or let's say all these big organizations agree that there's going to be a pause to allow government time to catch up. What about the 13 and 14-year-old who is in his garage developing AI right now? Who is going to take all this existing information and be able to do something with it. So there's not going to be that pause that we are asking for. So how can we help set up the kinds of security that helps our organizations while we wait for when government would be able to do something?
Self-governance. I think that's the only solution. There will have to be committees and, oversight committees who sort of oversight the private sector, but I don't see that as a problem. I see the real problem with not regulating AI is going to be bad actors, because we're all talking about it in a very lovely way about business and creativity and marketing and education and stuff like that, but we haven't talked about using AI to develop war games and weapons of mass destruction and all this kind of stuff, and that is really where it's going to be used, so it's really to put caps on it, to say that, these things are against the law, these things are within the boundaries of the law. Here's how we protect consumers' personal and company data, and let's let the technology take, run its course. But without that, we're going to have, it's going to be the wild, wild west for a little while.
Yes, but that same interview I referred to earlier with the ex-chief of business from Google had some very specific concerns about that in terms of whether you could allow humans to take control like that. But I saw that our chairman had put on his video, so I know for sure he wants to make an input here with us. So Nigel, let's hear your comment or question.
Yeah, I mean, very, very interesting conversation. Thank you all very much. I am not waiting on government, and I don't think anybody should, if you expect government to protect you. So, I mean, for me, ChatGPT, and I use it quite a lot. And it's interesting when it really gets it wrong, how wrong it gets it. So experts should be using ChatGPT, and of course, questioning everything it provides, but it's certainly helpful in pulling together very quickly a good foundation on which to work with. And I agree with the whole being careful of bad actors, but it's not going to stop the bad actors. The penalties may after the fact, but we all have to be wary that the stuff that is going to be produced and could be produced by people with malintent could be very convincing, and therefore we have to work with our teams to ensure that they are aware, that they are diligent and careful in accepting whatever it comes down the track, and ensure that we have our experts very, very on board with checking and verifying. But it's a whole brand new world, really. So
yes, absolutely. It is, in fact, it's so disruptive. What I've heard said about this is that our way of life as we knew it is now over.
It's over for a long time,
and it's a brand new world now.
We're just realizing it now.
Yeah, because in fact, the AI is sentient. It is able to feel, it is able to project emotions, and it is building on its own intelligence. So here was one of the caution that was offered by one of the experts as well. And it is in line with what Nigel is saying. It's so important for us to prepare these regulations now. We need to understand how we are going to govern our use of this and how we manage it. Because if we wait until it gets so much smarter than us, we will not be able to catch up. So where do we go from here in terms of ensuring, one, we are able to benefit? Because I totally agree with Aaron. This is not something that you want to be afraid of. This is not something that you want to now remove from your sphere. You want to embrace and include all of the positives. I mean, look at the brilliance within a few minutes of the kind of song that it could have produced. Look at the report it gave for CFO in dealing with an issue within an organization. A lot of really good stuff. So you want to be able to use it. At the same time, though, it's important for us to develop what will be those control mechanisms. Nigel, it brings us directly back to that governance issue in terms of, so I was asked this question, we have all these theories, we know what it is we expect it to do. Why is it that we still have problems in organizations and with boards? And usually my response is, because it comes back to human nature, it's people who make the decisions. And so that's why it's important for us to have control mechanisms and oversight and all the good things that builds out the rules and norms for how we wish to operate moving forward. I see Kristian's hand is up. So Kristian, I'm going to invite you to jump in with your thoughts.
Thanks. No, that's an excellent explanation. I liked when you said it's human decision making, because ChatGPT is AI. So AI, all at the end of the day, is data-driven decision making to help the human make that final decision. Okay, that's all it really is. Now, at the end of the day, the human has the empathy, has the emotional intelligence, where a computer or machine learning will not have that. That's where the human comes into place. Now, for security purposes and security policies for companies and whatnot that I'm seeing on the chat here, I've talked about fine tuning, which is probably one of the greatest methods to secure ChatGPT done within your organization. But so I talked about fine tuning already, so I'm not going to go so much into it, but it's important to remember that fine tuning alone may not address all the challenges as a human, right? For the technology part and whatnot, getting the data where it needs to come from, that's great. But we still need to implement robust security measures, monitor the system, and take proactive prevention steps to manage risks efficiently. So there's stuff like ethics first. So make sure that we always put ethics at the front of our AI development. It's like teaching a child what's right from wrong. Reducing errors, just like us, ChatGPT can make mistakes, but with fine tuning, we can help it learn from these errors and get better over time. Then we also have counteracting adversaries, right? Sometimes people try to trick or misuse AI. Through fine tuning, again, we can teach ChatGPT to handle these situations and not fall for the tricks. Regulating compliance, using ChatGPT in certain areas such as HR or customer service may raise regulatory compliance issues, which is why company policies and procedures should be addressed to employees before using it. Some type of assessment should be definitely made. Some type of strategy should be definitely made before implementing ChatGPT within your company, and employees should be trained on it. So at the end of the day, okay, what's important to remember, so I have to leave with anything, is that I personally believe that regulating AI tools like ChatGPT can ensure that AI algorithms adhere to privacy protection, accountability, bias, and fairness, allowing companies to know what is allowed and what isn't, giving them the freedom to innovate within those boundaries. And that's what I just wanted to add.
And that's awesome, Kristian, except that sometimes when you wait for the regulators to make that decision, you have to then question in whose interest. So for instance, what would the regulators think should be the decisions who are doing so in China, as opposed to in the US as opposed to in India. So there will be those kinds of issues as well, which is why it's so important for us to continue to be informed as to how this is progressing. So the key question then would be, what do we do within our organizations, within our sphere of influence? We want to use ChatGPT and all of the artificial intelligence that is coming our way, but we want to do so safely, and we want to do so in a way that allows us to be able to progress. So then, what would be some of those first steps? So Chantal, if you were the CEO for JMB, for instance, what would you be saying that you think the organization should be doing to be able to both embrace AI and ChatGPT, but also be able to manage the concerns?
So again, a discussion, just like what we're having here, I would have that same discussion with my team or my employees, and again, the pros and the cons, discussing the research methodology, discussing how you would help to use it to help advance your personal, as everyone's saying, day-to-day jobs, but the risks. What is in the background, it's not regulated, where is the information coming from, you putting your information into it, making sure that those things are not shared, things like that. I would have a full discussion about it and let them understand the risks involved, but also what it will be useful for. And it's all down to personal responsibility and accountability at the end of the day, because it's how you use it. So you can't wait on it to be regulated. If your company regulates it internally, that's one step. But I think it's, again, personal responsibility and personal accountability that at the end of the day is what would really help you to manage that. And you have to put some trust into people in your own organization to say that yes, they're going to use it for the betterment of good or bad or whatever the case is, but you hope it's for the good side at the end of the day, and they're not going to use it to the detriment of your organization. So that would be my discussion.
And Aaron, if we were to speak to software developers in the region, of which there are many, there are lots of young people who are interested in software engineering and, go into this as the most exciting field, what would be your advice and guidance in terms of what they need to look out for?
I would tell them spend the $20 and subscribe to ChatGPT and use it as much as you can. It has taken my productivity level to, at least ×5, at least. I use it every day, all day. I know Chantal was not saying not to use it as a Bible, but it's more like my thesaurus sort of, I use it, it is my primary tool. And I use it quite differently from a lot of people. I've learned not to do what Chantal is suggesting. I don't use it for reports or presentations or anything like that. What I really use it for is a lot of the grunt work. I need 200 random words for a game I'm building. It could spit that out for me in 10 seconds. I need it to reformat some data for me. It does that. So the work that I would usually have a junior assistant do for me, I'm able to ask ChatGPT quite quickly. And it also leads to the next side of the conversation, is that as someone like myself who, I came out of school in the early 90s, nothing that we're speaking about now was being taught at school in those days. So everything I've learned over the last 20 years, I've taught myself. And part of being a business owner is, keeping up to date with the latest technology and, keeping abreast of it and understanding it. So even if you're not doing it yourself, one of the main questions you ask yourself as a business owner is not how you do it, is who could do it for you? And a lot of the who's has been answered by ChatGPT. And what I'm really looking for now are developers who are using ChatGPT, because I know they're more productive. And what I've learned since starting using ChatGPT in December last year to now has probably, outweighed everything I've learned in the last couple of years. Well, at least at the pace and the speed of it. So I would tell fellow developers, use it as best as you can. But just as Chantal and as everybody has suggested, understand how you're using it. It should not be used as to get the end result. You should really be using it as a guide or as an assistant or something to help you, as a tool in your toolkit to help you. Because that's what I really see it as. It's the ultimate tool in my toolkit right now.
Yes, that's
Really
right. I like that example, the ultimate tool, because it is the most brilliant tool that
Yeah.
we have
It's the most
available.
versatile tool. I mean, I used to have to hire translators to help me do work in Latin America. You know, now I could translate an entire website in ChatGPT in a couple of minutes. It may have errors, you know, but I could get through that. You know, I could see my way through those errors. I could have a friend proofread it for me in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas before I was paying somebody for a week to
And
translate
save some money.
and getting the same errors, you know. So
Mhm.
it's understanding how to use it as an effective tool. And I think, again, touching on the people who are afraid of losing jobs, what I'll tell those people are, you are not going to be replaced by ChatGPT within the next 2 to 3 years. You're going to be replaced by someone using ChatGPT. And you have a choice right now in your organization, whether to be that person who's using ChatGPT or you be the person who's being replaced by it. And I think most business owners, they're not going to fire people who are not using ChatGPT because you have employees who are more productive. What I would be doing is getting those people who are using ChatGPT to train the others so that they all become more productive, so that they could work less, get more time off. I could pay them more, we could get more business, and everybody's happy. In a real world, you know, that's not going to happen, but you know, that's the way that's the way it should sort of, the mindset that I think a lot of people should be having, that not to be afraid of it, that what they should be really doing is, you know, taking advantage of this moment and really, you know, positioning themselves in an organization as the people who are, you know, most productive and able to leverage this tool and understand how to use it.
Mhm. Okay, and so I agree. What I love most about it is it takes all the drudgery out of the repetitious work. So, you know, that's one of the things. Now, there are people who love that, you know, there are analysts who live for those moments, but I'm sure they could.
But it still does hallucinate, you know, it still does have errors. So, I mean, I personally go through these moments of 2 hours of it producing the most perfect code, but then it suddenly gives me a wrong piece of code and I spend 2 hours troubleshooting that wrong piece of code. You know, so it can lead you down an unproductive path, you know.
Now, Kristian, I want to ask, because I know you have worked on really big projects and stuff as well. How can you use ChatGPT in that context, and what would be the concerns you would have for complex organizations with complex projects?
For complex projects and organizations. So again, you use it as a guide tool, right? It's a framework and it's a guide to assist you with your project management abilities. You definitely, like how we're showing you in that one project management example, you want to customize the framework at the end of the day. So you're saving the analysis job at the beginning. You can have these plugins now where a business analyst, you know how people create a scope statement and then like a current state and a gap analysis and a future state. Well, there's a plugin right now called Show Me, and it's really cool. You use it and you give a scenario of do a workflow swim lane diagram from your sequence diagram or whatnot, based on this information on my scope statement here, and it does it for you in seconds, where it would take an analyst using Visio or Lucidchart or whatnot, at least 3 or 4 hours, right? And you already have just you have that information for you for there. So what I'm trying to say is that know the different plugins that you could use for ChatGPT for complex projects. Know how to prompt the right way for your projects to get a better result. Keep revising and iterating your prompt so you get the result that you are looking for at the end of the day. Now, what I gave you in examples on Show Me and like how they have diagrams, they could do all this business analysis and all that stuff, right? But when it comes to any type of analyst job, like data analyst, data modeling, business analysis that contributes to project management, accounting even, right? Let me tell you, when Copilot comes out, Copilot is a Microsoft Office 365 that's merging with their type of ChatGPT that's integrated in their Office applications. It's coming out in a few months. That's what Microsoft is saying, but they've been saying that every month. But I really can't wait till it comes out. It's going to blow your mind when it comes to Teams meetings. Email, it's going to read doing all of your minute meetings for you. Doing your agendas for you in seconds, reading a whole thread of thousands of emails, telling you what the key takeaways are or what you should concentrate the next time. It's going to have a plugin Get this, with Microsoft Project. So you know how you can create Microsoft Project, create your project schedule in Microsoft Project, right? Imagine uploading that file to Office 365 and then asking it, can you give me advice on how I can reduce costs for this phase of my project? For this complexity, I'm having a lot of people quit on me here. This is the amount of hours this person is putting in. Here's the skill level. Okay, it's going to look at all the repositories of the repository pool, knowing what people are available at, knowing what their skills are, as long as you set that in your file, and tell you, hey, did you know that Michael is available over the next 2 weeks? He has these skills. You don't have to go to a different department or sorry, at a consulting company to hire somebody that will cost you $100 an hour US or something like that. So complexity is going to be very focused on how you prompt project management in ChatGPT and the total use of Copilot when it does come out. And it's also going to include Visio and Microsoft Project. But currently right now, and as we speak, again, it's all about how you prompt and the correct way of prompting to guide you with a decision. And the human is making the decision at the end, like you said, Kamala, is correct, but it's giving you suggestions and it's giving you a great framework. It's saving countless of analysis hours or coordination hours of prepping a framework, a PMO governance framework, an IT principles or something like that. It will give you all of this stuff, and all you have to do is to go back, revise it, update it, review it, and yeah, go from there. So that's what I suggest is the best benefit for. Again, like Aaron said, and he's absolutely correct. Do not use it for an end result. It's a guidance, it's a framework, it's a tool to assist and help you at the end of the day. And that's where the human comes in, where people in your workforce will be have more advantage over somebody within the same job that has those skills now in ChatGPT.
All right, I see Camille has unmuted, so I'm going to invite her if she wants to ask her question. But as she gets ready to do that, I want to add for all of our participants, please raise your hands or put your questions in the chat, because this is the interactive part of the session where you get to be able to ask your questions as well. Okay, so yes, Camille, you look beautiful. So
No, I have been listening very carefully. And Kamala, it seems to me that CCGI needs to immediately develop a detailed course that can take us, maybe we can ask ChatGPT to help us, that takes us from where the Caribbean is today to where we're going to need to be. Because we need some leadership here, and I don't think we can wait on laws and regulations. As you mentioned earlier, the laws and regulations right now, we're right now rolling out privacy laws in Jamaica. And if as an organization, you allow certain information that should be kept private to not be kept private, there are going to be huge sanctions. So what I have as a takeaway is we have to manage how staff are putting information into ChatGPT, but the add-on to that is then we have to begin to train our people as to how this is to be used. So that's my little addition.
Yeah,
For sure.
And Camille, you have actually come into the same point that I was going to ask Nigel to address, and that was, so you sit on several boards, Nigel. You're not just, I would say, at CCGI, and you know a lot of directors. Are directors informed enough? Are they taking part in this conversation actively to be able to take charge of how they help steer their organizations in the use of AI? Or do we need to lose commitment?
No, I think it makes sense what Camille said, because I don't think a lot of people at that level are either using or are aware of what is coming down the track. So yeah, definitely. And for me, going back to the question you posed to to Chantal, you need to be guided by your core values and your purpose. And unfortunately, in most organizations, most of the team have no idea what the core values are or the purpose. And it's usually some kind of marketing initiative as opposed to why we exist, and really working with teams to ensure that one, they're engaged and that they care. And in that context, you have ChatGPT as a tool to help them to deliver on whatever that purpose is. So, you know, I mean, that legal case, I read it in the New York Times. It's quite interesting. I mean, ChatGPT was so off. And as Kristian said, they used ChatGPT incorrectly. But they were lazy in that they didn't do their own homework with what was presented. And that's the challenge we face. So it is a tool, but we have to understand the limitations of the tool, the strengths of the tool, the weaknesses of the tool, and use it appropriately. But I don't think most directors have a clue. I don't know if any of them are using it, quite frankly.
Okay, so then, Kristian, I want to come to you to ask, where can people learn how to prompt correctly? Is there such a program that organizations can send their staff to learn how to prompt and how to manage these things?
To be honest, there's a lot of ways to do this all over the internet, right? Lots of Udemy courses and whatnot. I honestly don't agree with them. So how to prompt correctly is I've done maybe over 17 presentations just alone this year on how to prompt correctly. So there's a lot of free sessions that I do and whatnot. I've even been asked to write a book with Wiley on it, so I might do that. But the presentation I did for Trinidad and Tobago the other day on how to prompt correctly, I could even share that with this group. It's fine in a PDF. There's tips and tricks that I've used that I think that works best through iteration and revision. That gives you the best result, and then it's proof that it gives you the best result from the outputs that it's shown, and it shows it live, like I've done the demonstration, and it gives me exactly what I'm looking for. And it tells you the limitations and what not to focus on. For example, right now, do not focus on heavy calculations on ChatGPT. It's not going to give you a great answer, right? You can focus on slight calculations like critical path and whatnot, knowing, you know, like simple, like return on investment and stuff like that. Sure, earned value management, I guess. But in very complex situations, you're not going to use it for mathematical equations. But yeah, so with that being said, that's the reason why, Kamala, that I created this PowerPoint presentation that I go over around the world and speak on how to correctly do the prompting, because I've never seen it done the way that I have it, which is fairly unique. What I could tell you for a good takeaway is that there's a lot of people on the internet that says to use a lot of verbiage as much as you can, you get the best outcome out of it. That is 100%, in my opinion, incorrect. Yeah, it's going to give you a lot of gibberish. What ChatGPT is known for is when you ask it a question, it comes back with a lot of fluff in it. Now, to get away from that, you want to end your prompt with giving me a clear and concise response. Okay. Act as this person, because it's going to give you a better response if you act as a specific doctor. Whether if you don't tell it to act as a doctor, act as a cardiologist. Tell me what an echocardiogram is and what the medicine I should be taking here, right? To help me, and make it clear and concise. Now you're going to get an answer back that's way better than if you just put a long message in. Then you're going to take that answer, the response, and then you're going to revise it. Say, that's a good answer, but I want to know more about the medications. How often should I be taking? What's the side effects on it, right? Revise. After 3 or 4 times, you're going to get exactly the answer that you want, instead of going with a huge explanation at the beginning, which people said that ChatGPT will know. No, it's going to give you an essay long question with a response with a lot of fluff and nonsense and made up things that's not clear and concise. So that's the best I can answer that, Kamala. I hope that helps.
Yes, it did. But when I asked Aaron, yes, Aaron,
Yeah,
I could.
I wanted to kind of just add to that because, I mean, from a software developer's point of view, Kristian, sometimes what I have to do is feed it tons of documentation. So like if I'm asking it to write a really complex Python script or something in,
Yeah.
you know, React or something like that, what I found is at the beginning, if I just ask it, okay, imagine you're a React codex or imagine you're or act as a Python codex, it may give me an answer, but it may be a very kind of generalized answer. So what I've started doing is feeding it and almost using up all of my tokens and just feeding it the documentation sometimes, especially if it's a new library that it doesn't know about past, but post 2021. So I think there are cases where feeding it a very long initial prompt is useful, but I agree with you totally. Like if I'm trying to come up with a marketing plan or something like that, sometimes oversaturating it with data just makes it hallucinate into just giving you foolishness.
Exactly.
Yeah. And there are different prompt techniques, like there's what they call zero-shot prompts, where you just sort of give it a direct prompt and hope for an answer. And then multiple shot prompts where you almost give it, you ask questions and give it the answer before it has a chance to answer you. So you're almost guiding it on the type of answers you want. So
right. Yes.
Yeah, Kristian is right. It's that there's an entire, I guess, job description now in prompt engineering. And understanding how to engineer these prompts for different business sectors, because as I was explaining, a software engineer's prompt is going to be completely different from a financial analyst prompt,
for sure,
or from a cardiologist prompt. Yeah.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. And so coding is totally a different world out there as a programmer too, and that's why I would never use I wouldn't use ChatGPT right now to execute code or to help me right now, but because they came out with, and I'm sure you know about it, Copilot GitHub, right? So it helps you, so it helped. That's like a even way more advanced technology than ChatGPT interface that we know as to write code. So for that aspect, that's what I would use that technology for, which is great, which will helps you write a lot more code easily and more efficiently than just feeding in information on the user interface that we know today, ChatGPT. Would you agree?
Yes and no. As someone who uses both, I find Copilot, I use Copilot more for inline coding, like when I'm actually doing something. So like to expand on a function or correct some inline code or something. But to be very honest, like I'm now wrapping up development on a game, and I'm going to write a blog post about this. About 95% of the code written in the game is written by ChatGPT, and all of it works. I mean, everything from the payment processing for Apple payments to the authorization. I mean, most of the code was written by ChatGPT. And I have another app where every single piece of graphic and nearly every single piece of code was also written by ChatGPT, and every graphic was done by Stable Diffusion. So there are cases where you can produce a lot of work. Now, I'm not saying that I couldn't have done it without these tools. I could have, but it was just these are cases where I have been able to my own surprise, write a lot of executable code that works. You know,
right? And you talked about graphics too. You probably know a lot about Midjourney too.
Yeah.
Midjourney is so cool.
Yeah. So recently, I mean, I've been exploring the image generation and text to video, where you could like simply put in a paragraph of text and it generates almost Pixar quality animations from that. You know? So yeah, I think prompt engineering, as you were discussing, I mean, that in itself is an entire business, and teaching people about that in organizations, I think is going to be an invaluable tool, because in organizations, you have these experts in their fields. And I think once they understand how to interact with the AI to get the results they need, I think that's when you're going to have these managers and CEOs having these absolute eureka moments.
Right, exactly. And like you said, for different roles, especially like way different roles, like a physician versus like a programmer, right? In Python, the way you prompt it is going to be different. For example, I was doing a demonstration the other day on artificial intelligence with SQL. Now, ChatGPT, the user interface that we use, is not a compiler. It's not going to show you the result. But what you can do is give it information, and it's going to come back to you with a response with an SQL code, and then you could say revise in the table format for the results. So it'll give you the same thing that it'll give you in a query using SQL, but it can give you in a table result. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of different phrases that a specific role can use for different formats to produce what they want to see as an outcome. But you would have to know that beforehand. Like you wouldn't know. Like I just know that, okay, well, as a previous programmer, I know that you can output something into a table format that will look like an outcome of SQL through a query, right? So if I just asked it to do that, can you do that? And I didn't know if it was going to do it, and it did it, and it worked really great.
If I may interrupt just for a minute, we have had Camille with her hand up for a little while.
Sorry.
In the conversation as well, because we have just 10 more minutes to
Go ahead.
our end time, and I want to let everyone know that we did in fact put the link to get their feedback in the chat. I would appreciate if everyone will just click on the link, please. It will just take you 2 minutes to be able to give us that feedback, and it is very important to us that we get it. So I thank you for giving us that feedback now, and I'm going to ask Camille to unmute and to then share with us her thoughts, question or comment.
Right. So we have been listening to some highly knowledgeable users, and something that has come home to me is that persons who use this need to be knowledgeable. Or as Aaron was saying, it could do 90% of the work well, and then there'd be a huge error somewhere in there. And because the person is not proficient in utilizing this could cause a major problem. Thank you very much for the presentation. That's really helpful. But I also would like to know, are there any policies that, because the board has to lead, so is anybody aware of any ChatGPT policies that we can use as a precedent to help boards come up with their policies for their organizations?
And if no one can think of any now, we are open to you sharing when you do find it, because it's something that we absolutely have to do.
Well, I do know that there are several congressmen and congresswomen in the states who have draft policies. I remember reading one that was done in the UK recently as well. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know if you search for them, there are people in several governments around the world who are drafting policies, you know. So there are people who are taking a proactive approach to this. So I'm pretty sure you could find some sort of starting point, at least.
So government policy as opposed to company policy.
Yeah, well, again, this was more on government level. This was not
Right.
you know, corporate policies as per se.
Okay,
Right,
thank
and
you.
yeah, and then the senator of the U.S. Congress, Richard Benthel, he is in the works right now creating governance regulation documentation alongside with Sam Altman, which is the owner of OpenAI. That's as much as I know. So I know, like Aaron said, it is in progress, but the final say, I can't give that, but I do know it's in progress.
Yeah, and keeping in mind that even as they're developing that, the AI is developing exponentially. So by the time those rules are in place, it may be a bit outdated.
Right, no, the policy will have to take that into account, that it's going to be constantly evolving, but it is, how does our organization deal with this?
Mm-hmm. And that's really the true thing, because the government level regulations can be pretty wide, but for organizations, you want to ensure that you could actually capture what may be key concerns that's direct to your company as well, which means this online learning, this ongoing ensuring that we understand and could follow the implications and are always ahead of it is, you know, going to be the challenge that's before all of us as we move forward. Okay, it's 2:25. which gives us 5 minutes to be able to wrap up. This has been such a great conversation. I'm hoping that all of our panelists feel that they've been able to share, a lot in terms of what we will need to do. Many of us are just, I would describe as lay persons. I looking at ChatGPT as a tool even means I have to learn so much more about that tool. And then, as all of the panelists mentioned, that's just one. There are hundreds being developed, and they're being developed to do so many things, not just text, but videos and graphs. In fact, Chantal was shared with me just before we started the panel that you can in fact develop an entire movie using AI. So there's a lot that's happening out there. We need to understand it, and we need to learn how we can use it to our advantage for our organizations. Just very quickly, let me see. Okay, it's just a thank you from Lisa. Very sound information and discussion on this topic. So I want to ask each of our panelists to give us some closing thoughts. Aaron, we'll start with you, then go to Chantal and Kristian. But I want to ask my two directors to stay. So we would ask Camille to give us a closing thought, and then Nigel to wrap us up. Okay, so Aaron, can I ask you, in a minute, what would be something that you want to leave with our participants on our discussions on the implications of ChatGPT and AI today?
Oh yeah, it's just not to be afraid of this new technology, and to take advantage of it while you can, and learn as much as you can, leverage it in your organization, prove to your boss that that you're productive with it, and that you're keeping on top of the technology, because I feel in the next year or two, this is going to be, just as important as, being proficient in Office and Excel and these other tools that are used every day in the office. So yeah, that's where I stand with it.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. Chantal?
Sure. My takeaway is basically we're all human. We all fear change, right? So everybody tends to get overwhelmed when something new comes on the horizon and they're unsure of it because they're just not comfortable in that space. But I think what I would advocate for everybody is do your own research. There are many social and or web-based platforms that you could go to learn about ChatGPT, as well as prompts and tools and little tips. Do your own research, get familiar with it, start your own methods and your own way until you get more comfortable in that space. And then you will start to see how it progresses. And for your everyday jobs, or if you're an entrepreneur and you have something that you would like to try and figure out, it's actually a good tutorial as well, which I know we did not discuss on, but it is a good thing to actually learn in a couple of things, topics, education, etc. We can go on and on, but I would advocate for somebody to just try at the end of the day. Best thing to do is just try. There's no harm, there's no foul. It's not going to blow up your computer. Just try it.
Thank you very much, Chantal. Kristian?
Yeah, I just want to add as well, if I would, for implications of ChatGPT, again, maybe read on an article or go on LinkedIn to see if anyone's learning. Feel free to add me to LinkedIn. I do a lot of other sessions about prompt engineering, but one thing to do is definitely to have a good grasp of what prompt engineering is, because that will be a demand in the future for a job role. Second of all, for organizations, like I said, the number one thing I believe in is to fine-tune a data model within your organization to only have those specific data, and along with having an HR policy and procedure readiness or assessment done to allow protection and accountability and prevent bias, and to be fair to others and have transparency. That should be definitely happen. How that should work is, I believe that the IT department should get closely with the HR department to help construct these policies, and then deliver to the key stakeholders within your organization. Then have a project on itself to create a fine-tuned model. That's personally what I think that should be happening right now. And yeah, again, at the end of the day, empathy and emotional intelligence only comes from a human. And the ChatGPT and AI is guides you in your decision making at the end of the day. It's you, the person that does it. You have the the human interaction of knowledge and how people work and how empathy is produced, and how is emotional intelligence there, how we can we deal with certain conflicts or whatnot in a paralinguistic way, right? And ChatGPT will never know about a paralinguistic way about dealing with conflict or whatnot, but it's a good guidance tool to use. So just remember that, and that people would have more of an advantage in the upcoming roles in any industry if they have a little bit of knowledge on ChatGPT or even AI technologies.
Thank you. Thank you. Camille?
Yes, well, thanks to Chantal for assuring me that my computer won't blow up. I feel like I'm trying to get my dinosaur tail under control, but it is really not there. So, but I'm glad that we have Caribbean people at the forefront and knowledgeable in this area. And all I can say is you are going to be hearing from us, because we will need guidance. And I do like what Kristian just said about bringing the HR people and the IT people together and trying to, put some policies around this. So Thank you so much to everybody.
Yes, thank you, Camille. Nigel, can we hear some thoughts from you too as we close?
Yeah, I mean, I want to thank Chantal, Aaron, and Kristian. I've already connected with him on LinkedIn, so looking forward to interacting. This is game changing, and I have no dinosaur tail. I am open to learning and growing and to the exciting things that I'm sure as we think about it, while people wait for the regulators, the technology guys are going to come up with solutions to help us to determine whether what we're seeing from ChatGPT is fake or not. I have a lot of faith in the technology, not so much in the politicians or the regulators. So it's gonna be brilliant. We're going to be learning and growing, and I'm excited. So
yeah.
Thank you all very much. You're going to be, hopefully this is the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yes, for sure. So if I may bring this panel discussion to end, I want to encourage everyone. I have no links to this guy, but I want to highly recommend. There is a podcast, is what I would call it, called Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. It is really incredible, and it gives you a lot of information about different things. So in that particular episode where he had an interview with the chief business officer or former chief business officer of Google, and what that guy, his name is Mo, what Mo said is, artificial intelligence is bigger than climate change. There's nothing artificial about artificial intelligence. And he says it's the biggest thing that humanity will face. So it's a lot for us to talk about in terms of implications. What I am hoping for is we can really develop such sophisticated systems that we could achieve something very simple. How about ensuring that we use everything that is available to us as tools for efficiency, so we could actually have a nice 4-day work week where productivity doesn't fall, but we achieve what we want still, and we're able to spend that time as people together, socializing, interacting, deepening our relationships, and becoming more spiritual so that we have stronger, better lives together. So a lot for us to talk about as we continue this series. I think that definitely there's more for us to cover because it's evolving so quickly. I want to, as our chairman has done, and our director Camille, I want to thank you, Aaron. Thank you very much, Chantal, and thank you, Kristian, for taking the time to come and share your knowledge and skills with us. As you can see, a lot of us really, we still have so much to learn, and it's really important, as Camille said, that we have persons like you all that we could turn to help build our awareness and our ability to know how to be able to respond. Just a final plug for Kristian. He's going to be coming to Trinidad and Tobago later this month. He is going to be speaking at
AmCham.
Right. AmCham session, which, by the way, I should not promote. They happen at the same time with Governance Week. But
more
you
to
know, we are
share.
not competitors. We are all collaborating together to help build a better world. Okay, so we look forward to meeting you in person then, Kristian. So thank you guys very much. Aaron, I look forward to being able to meet you at some point, and Chantal, you too. Just to let you guys know, we stay online to ensure that we could connect with the region. So we've had persons from Belize, from Guyana, from Barbados, from Jamaica here today. We do plan to have one physical event to bring everyone together. That's going to be at the end of the year in November. So we look forward to all of you coming and joining us for that event as well. All right. Have a wonderful day. Thank you all very much. Lots to think about as we move into tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, everyone.